It's the front page Saturday Town Hall edition. Isaac Bryan is with us, Executive Director of the UCLA Black Policy Project. And, thank you for sticking with us for just a few minutes longer. I know you have somewhere to be. Attorney Caree Harper is also with us. She's a civil rights attorney, well known. I want to make sure that we don't let you leave without going over some, things that are important to you. Last time we talked, which was several weeks ago, you actually really were one of the key people that made me rethink my vote on Proposition 25. And this is something people are still debating right now. Isaac Bryan, you want to give your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Proposition 25 is a tough one because ending the cash bail system where we are literally pricing out freedom for those who are incarcerated pre-trial who have not been convicted of any wrongdoing is important. But replacing it with an algorithmic risk assessment-based system that has the propensity to incarcerate even more people pre-trial without due process and without having been convicted concerns me deeply. I'm not in favor of getting rid of a classist and racist structure only to replace it with a classist and racist structure. My kind of policy change is one that's rooted when it comes to the criminal legal system in abolishing the pieces that are most harmful to our communities, not replacing them with new mechanisms that we then have to fight against in the future. And so Prop 25, or with the bail discussion for the entire state of California, I want to go back to the drawing board and talk about how we preserve the presumption of innocence for people who have been accused or alleged of doing wrongdoing. I don't want to have a discussion about what kind of system has to be in place to limit people's freedoms to a greater degree. And I think Prop 25 is forcing us to have that conversation instead of the one that we should be having about preserving the presumption of innocence and pretrial freedom.
So how likely is it that we can get rid of cash bail if this doesn't pass?
And I think that's a strategic and political question. I don't know that it would be easy because voters, I think, are largely confused right now whether cash bail is good or cash bail is bad. And cash bail is bad. Make no mistake about it. But replacing it with a risk assessment algorithmic-based tool is not the way to do it. We're going to increase the amount of people that are being supervised by probation. We're going to increase community supervision. We're going to give judges more discretion to detain people pre-trial without due cause. And we're going to give many, many, many more people less ability to get out pre-trial because you can't pay your way out and there are no other ways out. There are too many carve-outs for who doesn't qualify for pretrial release that are going to disproportionately impact black and brown communities and poor communities. And so I don't know that we'll be able to get rid of cash bail again in the near future, but I don't know that I'm willing to get a quick win today for potentially a more harmful system tomorrow. And that's something that I think folks need to be careful of with Prop 25.
Talk to me about this idea that a lot of folks just don't want to vote at all, particularly in our community. And the conversation we started before the break about Kamala Harris, right? And some people want to say, oh, well, she's a prosecutor, she's a cop, she's, this, she's that. And then on the other hand, you've got, the president saying she's, a Marxist. So it's like, why does the top of the ticket matter? And why should we be voting whether we're voting top or not?
Yeah, well, with Senator Harris, she is a former prosecutor, and California's top cop is a moniker she gave herself. And there's some atonement that needs to be done for some of the decisions that she made as a prosecutor. That being said, she's also a black woman running for vice president on the Democratic ticket. And family business is a family business conversation we should have. But we should not hold black women to higher standards than we hold everyone else to, which is what we do in society. And when it comes to getting out and vote, we need to get out and vote. And black men need to get out and vote because we vote at a lower degree than black women and with less consistency and regularity. So we've got to turn out and vote. But all folks need to turn out and vote. This election couldn't be more important. And what's happening to Senator Harris is important for folks to raise these concerns, particularly folks from California, Black and brown and indigenous folks who have been touched by the criminal legal system under her policies. But it is not at all fair or appropriate to hold her to this higher bar than we're holding for sure the Republican ticket and everyone else who was in the Democratic field. And now is the time for solidarity. Now is the time for mobilization. Now is the time to vote. And we can have those serious, important conversations about policy after we win this election. But if we don't win this election, we won't have those conversations about policy at all, because we know the current administration has boxed everyone with a good idea for how to equitably and more progressively move our country forward out of leadership and out of conversations of change. And so we've got to vote this administration out, and we've got to put our best chance in, and that is Joe Biden and Senator Harris.
I love hearing you say that about holding Black women to higher standards, because that's something that I really feel like we have to be perfect. And if we're not perfect, we'll just get trashed, as opposed to everybody else can, do all kinds of things and still be forgiven. So it's great to hear that coming out of the mouth of a Black man on this Saturday morning, because no human is perfect. And then the other piece of that is, we hear about record Black voting, early turnout, like in places like Georgia, right? And yet here in LA, in California, from what I'm reading, the Black vote is lagging. And, and I know, I don't know if people are really influenced by what, Lil Wayne and 50 Cent have to say. Maybe they are, or more likely Cube. But why do you think that, and what do we do about it, the fact that so far Black California is not turning out the way that we should, that we need to?
Yeah, well, first of all, nobody's influenced by Lil Wayne, 50 Cent, Kanye West being on the ballot, which still blows my mind. That might detract some, and those kind of, sideshows can steal the headlines for a day. But I think the reason Black folks are not turning out yet, because I'm still hopeful that by November 3rd we can see what we'd like to see out here in California. Part of it is because in California we've been afraid to talk about the policy issues as directly as we need to be. Right? A lot of these propositions and a lot of these candidates have either anti-Black positions or supportive Black positions that will uplift our most marginalized communities and our hardest hit communities during the pandemic and our current civic institutions. And so we haven't talked directly to Black voters about how Prop 15 will reinvest dollars in our communities and in our schools. We haven't talked about how Prop 16 is going to allow Black folks to matriculate into higher education and contract with municipal governments at a higher degree than we have since the ban on affirmative action. We haven't talked about how Prop 17 specifically directly targets the disproportionate amount of Black people on extensive parole sentences who have been deprived of their civic right to vote. We haven't talked about how Measure J will move nearly $1 billion to our communities for alternatives to incarceration, youth development, small business support, job placement support that's going to impact Black, brown, indigenous, and poor communities disproportionately. If Black folks knew just what is at stake for us on this ballot, or if they knew the candidates running, that district attorney race in L.A. County has been called the second most important race in the country, and while we have a Black woman who's an incumbent, she has only ever utilized that office to disproportionately harm Black folks. We need to know what's at stake putting a different candidate in there. We need to know what's at stake in our Board of Supervisors race here in L.A. County, because the Board of Supervisors in L.A. County control a larger budgetary responsibilities than just about any other elected officials in the entire country. And there's a major difference between Holly Mitchell and Herb Wesson, and we need to make sure we do the right thing and put the right woman in place for that position. If we know what's at stake for our communities, I think we'll turn out. And we've been afraid to call policies what they are, which are incredibly anti-Black or incredibly supportive of advancement for Black peoples and all peoples in California. And that, I think, is what's keeping folks at home, is we don't feel represented in these decisions, but we should, because they're for us.
Yeah, I mean, we'll respectfully agree to disagree on the supervisor position, but I think the thing about it is, we have good choices, right? I mean, we have good leadership. And I think, change isn't always the thing, right? I mean, I'm talking about Maxine Waters, Congresswoman Maxine Waters now. I'm talking about Congresswoman Karen Bass. We have talent. We have representatives that, give a crap and do a good job. And I'm also talking about Mark Ridley Thomas in CD10, because right now, a lot of these districts are not even fully black anymore. In fact, they're in many cases not, even half black. And if you don't continue to elect African Americans right now, those seats may not be black seats anymore ever. So if you've got a progressive that's black and is doing a good job, I just don't understand why you would make any other choice at this point.
If you count up all the black seats from the Los Angeles City Council, the Los Angeles Board of Supervisors, and the entire California state legislature, you're talking about just under 15 people total, right? We deserve that representation. We deserve a greater share of representation. And just because we are being broken up and displaced and gentrified out of black strongholds that we have held for decades and pushed into different parts of our communities doesn't mean that we don't deserve adequate representation. And your point about Mark Ridley Thomas returning to the city council, a city council that's been just hit with poor decision-making for quite some time now from a number of different positions. That one, in particular, CD10, has been held by Council President Herb Wesson, who has done a phenomenal job of moving incredible policies forward for our communities. We deserve another black champion in that seat, and Mark Ridley Thomas is definitely one of them. And to your point about Congresswoman Bass, she was almost Vice President nominee Karen Bass herself. We have talent. We have potential, but we have to turn out to keep those seats. And then we've got to hold folks accountable, not just black folks, but all folks, for the policies that impact our lives.
Well, Isaac Bryan, I know you got to jump off. I appreciate you joining us this morning. Director of Public Policy at UCLA, Ralph J. Bunche Center for African American Studies. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, too.
Attorney Caree Harper, riding with us until the wheels fall off. Appreciate you, too. Civil rights
attorney. Let them fall off.
Super
be Fred
lawyer.
Flintstone, right?
All right. We got some calls. But Professor Bryan weighed in on the DA's race. I know you have a thing or two to say about that as well.
Yeah, I had a little trouble hearing, but I don't think he gave an endorsement to the current incumbent.
No, he was just saying it was one of the most important races in the country. And no, he did not give an endorsement.
And Dominique, I think you and I talked offline that I met Jackie Lacey a few times in one period of a year, and I thought when I met her I would dislike her because of some of the decisions that she made. But when I met her, I found her to actually be likable, and I was puzzled and internally conflicted that she's nice, but her policy harms people in my perspective.
She's nice, and she's black, and she's a woman, and
we endorsed her in 2012.
Indeed.
And you did that thing at the high school, I forget which one, and we all came out, and everybody rose up, and we publicly endorsed her and advocated for her being there. And then the other shoe dropped. And I say the other shoe because there's no DA that we're going to have that's going to do every single thing that we want. And they shouldn't. They should do things that's right. However, when you have videotaped evidence and we have a choice of someone saying, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? And we see a white man straddling a homeless, helpless black female protecting herself only, trying to dodge blows. And yes, I'm speaking of Marlene Pinnock and the CHP
Your
officer,
client, yes.
My client, my forever client, and the CHP officer who beat her, and the blows, every time I see it, I have to turn away because I had nightmares watching it because I'm trying to dodge the blows. When you look at a fight, usually a fight is something where somebody's fighting back. And if she would have fought back, she might have been able to take them. But she didn't fight back. She protected herself.
Or she might have died.
She might have died. He might have pulled out. Exactly. And she made a good move, and she chose to survive the onslaught, which is what everybody should do. But then you have a DA that says, well, his training made him do. You can't be trained to be human. You can't be trained to know that you shouldn't beat somebody who's defenseless. Even in mixed martial arts, there's a tap-out point, and he didn't stop. So it wasn't that she didn't charge him. It's that she defended it And yes, she defended it on 5 parts in the LA Sentinel. She defended it constantly and said he wasn't trained, and our experts said he did everything that he should have done.
Right. And we've had this conversation with over 600 people killed by police on her watch. She, hasn't done any meaningful prosecution. She sends more people, to the death penalty than anyone else. But on the other side, some people are concerned about Gascon. You have any words about that? Like, especially after our Alex Villanueva debacle.
Well, the thing is that we've never seen Alex Villanueva in a supervisor position. I'm going to vote, and I voted for Gascon because we have seen what he would do when in a position of power in San Francisco. It's not that he left that city in a worse position, in my opinion, but he did author certain things. I think it's Prop 47. I'm not one of his surrogates, so I'm not a running resume on all things Gascon, but he has shown a desire to reform and to listen, and not to say, look, I have no sin and I have never made a mistake. All of us have sinned and fallen short. But when you make a mistake, own your mistake and do better next time. Don't justify it over and over again when we see with our own eyes that you made a mistake.
Got it. A couple minutes left. I want to grab a couple calls here before we pass the mic to the illustrious Guy Black, who will get us ready for Halloween, daylight savings time, right? Which is tonight. And also going to vote, which all vote centers are now open. They're open from 10 a.m. Okay, almost open. From 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day until Election Day. And every single voter can go to any vote center. So let's get this done. I want to go to Big Phil calling us from L.A. Good morning, Big Phil.
Good morning, Jumbo. Creek did rise this morning. Hey, Dominique, my condolences go out to your mother.
Thank you.
And my mother said, take care of yourself, which you let my mother 5 years ago. She's praying for you.
Thank
and
you.
I'm fired up and ready to go. And I think Donald Trump is going to get beat by a landslide. It turned out by the massive crowd like Obama did. And Joan Collins, he can take the rest of his food and don't skid row. He's not going to beat my homegirl, Maxine Waters. So I'm fired up. Maxine and her Wesley, let's do it. Let's move on. Ain't no stopping now. We're on the move. I'm out. You guys, God bless. Take care, Dominic.
Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you, Big Phil. Love you more. Hey, Caree Harper, I don't know if you want to weigh in on the presidential on the top of the ticket. He's saying Trump's going to get beat by a landslide. I don't take it for granted. No. I don't trust polls. I think we need every single vote, even in California.
I don't either. I'm still dazed by PTSD and that Hillary Clinton didn't win. We are behind. We're underdogs. We need all hands on deck. Everybody got to vote. We're not in the lead. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Going to Cindy from Inglewood. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Dominique Jumbo. Thank you for taking my call. I voted early for the first time in all my years of voting. So
yes.
People get out and vote.
Go, Cindy.
Can I comment on Ice Cube?
Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate him because you know what? He's standing for a contract to get things in writing instead of lip service. So I like the fact that he's addressing the Native Black American descendant of slaves, because what happens is we have to be put into a protected class of people, because I think these are pure human rights violations. And within the first 30 days, if Kamala and them could do that, put an executive order, put us Native Blacks into that protected class of people. And
got
I
it.
Think
okay,
that,
Cindy.
And then we get a trust fund, a dream act for people.
I got you. I'm fine with the commentary. Just got to keep it short because we're close to the end of the show. And Cindy, call me back on Tuesday. We have open phones Tuesdays. We have Fridays. We talk about all this stuff. Attorney Caree Harper, your thoughts on that? It sounds like a kind of a DOBA position as far as reparations and putting black people into a protected class.
Okay, and I heard
African, American-born black people is what she's talking about. Descendants of enslaved Africans is what she's talking about.
And I heard some of what she said. Did she mention the Ice Cube proposal?
She also did, yeah. But I was asking you to weigh in on what she said. She thinks Kamala Harris and Joe Biden should do an executive order to make black, Americans a protected class.
Okay, so there's already certain provisions.
And this has to be short. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. There's already certain provisions in place to protect Black folks, women, people over 40, in California, sexual orientation, and female gender and things of that nature, and religion. So there are things already in place to make folks a protected class. That's the short version.
And when you talk about reparations, that's a journey that we can take, and certainly.
Why don't we do that when they up for re-election? Can we just get them in now, please? Don't try and stack everything on it right now. Let's just get them in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think, that to her point about Cube, fine. I don't have a problem with this contract with America, even though it's very similar to the Congressional Black Caucus's proposals, which all we have to do is flip the Senate and we can get those passed, and flip the presidency so someone will sign them. But it's just the timing. I think, coming out and aligning yourself with the President Trump on the eve of the election. If he would have done it a year ago, 2 years ago, I think it would have been different, in my opinion.
I agree. And people only have, if they turn on CNN and they see Ice Cube met with Trump, sometimes they only get the headline. They don't see all the good things that he's trying to do. All they see is a headline, Ice Cube Trump. Oh, no. And they aren't going to read everything into it. So I think it's bad timing. It should have waited a year, or it should have been a year earlier. I agree.
Okay, just real quick, Caree Harper, Attorney Caree Harper, who I follow on Twitter. What would you leave us with?
Well, I'd leave you with, I agree with you on Propositions 16, and then I thought we were going to touch briefly on 25, because we've been going back and forth. I have wonderful folks on both sides with Prop 25. I got my bail bonds friend, in Inglewood at One Call Bail Bonds, that says don't vote for it. And I look at it, and I think Congresswoman Bass and the governor says yes on 25. Because we want the folks out and we don't want them to have to deal with bail. I'm leaning towards it. If this is closing, just vote, vote, vote. As far as the judges, we've already spoken. Mayanna Dellinger, seat 72 for Superior Court Judge. Mayanna Dellinger. She's a professor, and she has a wealth of experience. She's down for the cause. She worked on the Flint Water Michigan project, and she has extensive academic credentials. And seat 80, Tiffany, I'm going to defer to Tiffany Blacknell at the PD's office for David Berger, and it's spelled Berger for seat 80. And my old seat, 162. Folks have asked, yes, you can write my name in. I'm not plugging writing my name in, Caree Annette Harper.
Okay, real quick.
But we have Scott Yang is what we're doing. And I'll just say, vote, vote, vote.
All right, and go check out Caree Harper, Attorney Caree Harper, on social media for more info. Family, we also have to remember to pray. That's part of what we did when we got Obama into the White House. We prayed, we believed, and we mobilized. We got to do all of that this time and so much more. And remember, you can vote today. I suggest that you do. LAvote.net is where you can find a vote center, or just go to, Staples Center, go to the Forum. They're all open. West Angeles Church of God in Christ from 10 to 7 today. We got to go. We are passing the mic to Guy Black, sending you some good music, some energy to vote by. Until next time, Radio Free Family, one love.